Iran spent 40 years and billions of dollars building an air defense network that should have taken weeks to dismantle. It lasted hours. Not the kind of wall you were imagining, a wall of electromagnetic energy. Bavar 373 batteries that can reach out and kill an aircraft at 160 nautical miles before the pilot even knows he has been targeted. Mirage 4 radars scanning 240 nautical miles of sky, tracking 300 contacts at once. S-300 systems supplied by Russia. Layer after layer of missiles designed to turn any corridor into a graveyard. On paper, punching through that wall should have taken weeks. The 1991 air campaign against Iraq lasted 38 days, and Iraq had less than half of what Iran built. And yet, Iran's wall collapsed in hours. Not because America had more bombs, not because American pilots were braver, because America understood something Iran did not, something that has nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with money, and everything to do with a principle so simple that Iran studied it for 40 years and still missed it. What you're about to hear is not a timeline. The exact minute-by-minute sequence is classified, and any channel that tells you otherwise is guessing. But the physics, the engineering that dictates why each weapon must fire before the next, that is not classified. That is not a guess. That is how machines work. If you are proud of these men and the machines they operate, type "proud" in the comments. Subscribe to Navy Decoded. Other channels tell you what happened. We show you how it works. Because the people who serve deserve an audience that understands the mission. To understand the principle Iran missed, you first have to understand the wall and why it was supposed to be unbreakable. Before we dismantle the sequence, we need to respect the wall. Iran did not build a simple air defense network. Iran built a system, and systems are harder to kill than weapons. Start with the crown jewel, the Bavar 373, often compared to Russia's S-400. Here's what that means if you are an American pilot flying toward Iran. The system's Mirage 4 search radar sees you at 240 nautical miles, roughly the distance from New York to Washington. While you are still that far out, the fire control radar has already locked on. The Sayyad 4B interceptor launches. It reaches beyond 160 nautical miles and can kill at altitudes exceeding 100,000 feet, higher than a U-2 spy plane flies. You are dead before you cross the coast. That is what the Bavar was designed to do, and Iran did not stop there. Below the Bavar 373 umbrella sits the third Cordad, the Mersad, the Rod, each covering a different altitude, a different frequency, a different engagement envelope. Overlapping fields of fire, redundant communications, hardened command posts buried under mountains. 40 years of preparation. 40 years of studying how America dismantled Iraq. 40 years of engineering a system specifically designed to deny American aircraft access to Iranian airspace. Respect that. Because if you do not understand the strength of what fell, you will never understand the elegance of how it was broken. The sequence that broke Iran's air defense followed 4 phases. Each one created the conditions for the next. Reverse any 2 steps and the wall holds. Skip 1 and the whole chain fails. So how did we sequence it? In military doctrine, phase 0 is the shaping phase, operations that happen before the first shot is fired. It is not phase 1 because it is not combat. It is what makes combat possible. Before the first missile left a launch cell, something invisible crossed into Iran's digital infrastructure. U.S. Cyber Command and Space Command were what the Pentagon later called the first movers, layering non-kinetic effects before a single warhead flew. The details are classified. We do not know the attack vectors. We do not know the specific malware, if any was used. And we do not need to, because knowing the method changes nothing about the physics that follows. What we know is the result. NetBlocks, the independent internet monitoring organization, confirmed that Iran's national connectivity collapsed to 4% of normal levels. Whether that blackout was triggered by American cyber weapons or deliberately cut by the Iranian regime as a defensive measure, the effect was identical. Command lost signal. Cut the nerves, not the muscles. The radars were still standing. The missile batteries were still loaded. The commanders were still at their posts, but nobody could coordinate with anybody. A battery commander watching contacts on his radar had no way to confirm whether they were hostile, friendly, or decoys because the communications link to his sector command was gone. He could see, he could shoot, he could not ask anyone whether he should. An air defense network without communications is not a network. It is a collection of isolated batteries, each making decisions alone. Iran's fighter jets, aging F-14s, MiG-29s, Su-24s, never left the ground. Without communications, no scramble order reached the pilots. Without functioning runways, no scramble order mattered. Here is where the engineering becomes elegant. While Phase 0 was still settling over Iran's communications, something crossed into Iranian airspace. Not a missile, not a fighter jet, something far cheaper. Lucas drones, low-cost, unmanned combat attack systems manufactured by SpectreWorks in Mesa, Arizona. Reverse-engineered from captured Iranian Shahed 136 one-way attack drones, Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of CENTCOM, later described the process with a sentence that belongs in an engineering textbook.
I'd like to point out these drones were originally an Iranian design. We took them back to America, made them better, and fired them right back at Iran.
Each Lucas drone cost $35,000, wingspan of 8 feet, total weight roughly 180 pounds, range 500 miles. Now do the math. A Bavar 373 interceptor, the Sayyad 4B, costs between $1 and $3 million per round. When a Lucas drone appears on the Bavar operator's scope, he sees a slow-moving contact pushing inland at barely 100 knots. He cannot tell whether it carries a 40-pound warhead aimed at his radar antenna or whether it is a decoy. Training says fire, so he fires. $1 million chases a drone cheaper than a pickup truck. He fires again, another $1 million. Every interceptor that kills a Lucas is one fewer in the magazine when the real targets arrive. But the cost exchange is not the trap. The trap is physics. Every time that Bavar battery fires, its tracking radar switches to full-power continuous emission. It must. The missile needs guidance. And the moment it transmits at full power, every passive sensor on the F-35Cs crossing the border receives that emission like a lighthouse in the dark. The battery is spending its ammunition and painting a target on its own position. Shoot the drone, drain your magazine, and reveal your position. Ignore the drone, it flies into your radar antenna. There is no correct answer. That is the definition of a trap. That battery commander staring at his scope, the one we talked about in Phase 0, the one with no communications, he has trained for this moment for years. He fires at the drone. He fires again. Every interceptor he burns follows the same playbook. Detect, track, fire, guide. The playbook is correct, but every shot he takes is the last step in an equation designed so that his correct response is also his fatal one. Everything until now was preparation. But ask yourself, what good is a drained magazine and a blinded commander if the radar itself is still tracking? What happens next takes less than 90 seconds, and it is the reason Iran's 40-year investment became worthless. Planners have a name for it. They call it the dilemma, because it offers the defender no correct response. The F-35C Lightning II, the carrier-based variant, launched from the flight deck of USS Abraham Lincoln, carries an estimated radar cross-section of approximately 0.005 square meters, roughly the size of a golf ball. That number is classified. Independent analysts derived it from observable geometry and material estimates. But even the conservative end of the estimate is devastating. Imagine asking a radar designed to track fighter jets to instead find a golf ball moving at 600 knots. Here's the engineering. Radar detection range does not shrink proportionally when the target gets smaller. It follows the fourth route, which means if you cut the radar cross-section by a factor of 10,000, the detection range only drops by a factor of 10. Sounds abstract, so put it in real numbers. The Bavar 373's Meiraj 4 radar can detect a conventional fighter, something like an FA-18, at 240 nautical miles. Against the F-35, independent analysis based on Iran's own test data estimates detection at roughly 50 nautical miles. Let that sink in. A radar designed to see 240 nautical miles sees the F-35 at 50. Now look at the Bavar 373's engagement range, 160 nautical miles. The radar that is supposed to give the system 160 miles of kill zone only sees the F-35 when the F-35 is already inside the engagement envelope. The kill chain runs backwards. The prey detects the hunter before the hunter detects the prey. And the F-35C is not even transmitting. Its ANASQ-239 electronic warfare suite operates passively, listening for every radar emission across the spectrum, geolocating each one with precision, and forwarding those coordinates via Link 16 without ever giving away its own position. Behind the F-35C, the EA-18G Growler, the Navy's dedicated electronic warfare aircraft, carries the AN/ALQ-249 next-generation jammer. AESA arrays powered by an independent ram air turbine. When the Growler locks onto a Bavar 373 tracking frequency, it broadcasts enough electronic noise to saturate the receiver. The radar operator's screen does not show clutter, it shows white, nothing. The radar is technically on, but functionally blind. And then comes the weapon that makes the dilemma permanent, the AGM-88G, AARGM-ER, Advanced Anti-Radiation Guided Missile, Extended Range. Built by Northrop Grumman, speed exceeding Mach 2, range approximately 160 nautical miles, double its predecessor. Launched from FA-18 Super Hornets and EA-18G Growlers operating from the carrier deck. 3 seekers in 1 nose cone, and this is what makes it inescapable. Passive radar homing that follows the beam, GPS-assisted inertial navigation that remembers the target's position, and an active millimeter wave radar for terminal guidance. This missile does not care if the radar shuts down. Radar on, the AARGM-ER homes on the emission and flies down the beam at Mach 2. The operator has less than 90 seconds between transmission and impact. Radar off, the missile switches to GPS, navigating to the last known coordinates. At terminal range, the millimeter wave seeker activates and locates the physical hardware. The radar truck, the antenna array, the command vehicle. Turn it on, you die by the missile that follows the beam. Turn it off, you die by the missile that remembers where you were. A US official later confirmed what the physics already guaranteed. We have effectively suppressed their air defenses. The door is open. So what do we send through it? And why did we wait 40 minutes to get here? Here is the detail that ties the entire sequence together, the piece of engineering that makes every phase before it make sense. 40 minutes ago, before the first Lucas drone crossed into Iranian airspace, before the F-35C listened for its first radar emission, before the Growler broadcast a single watt of noise, Tomahawk cruise missiles had already launched from Arleigh Burke-class destroyers in the Gulf. CENTCOM photographs confirm it. The USS Spruance, VLS cells open, Tomahawks climbing into the night. Block 5 Tomahawks, $2.5 million each, Mach 0.74, range exceeding 1,000 miles. But Mach 0.74 is subsonic. A Tomahawk crossing the Persian Gulf needs roughly 40 minutes to reach the Iranian coast. The slowest weapon launched first, because it needed the longest runway. Every phase you just watched was designed to happen inside that 40-minute window. Phase 0 blinded the command. Phase 1 drained the interceptors. Phase 2 broke the radar. All of it, timed so that when the Tomahawks finally reach the coast, there is nothing left to stop them. The mathematics now compounds. The radars that would have detected our Tomahawks at 40 nautical miles are burning. The interceptors that would have engaged them are spent on $35,000 drones. The commanders who would have coordinated the response have not spoken to each other since Phase 0. Every phase removed one layer. By Phase 3, there are no layers left. IRGC naval bases along the Gulf Coast, command posts, fuel storage, submarine piers, hundreds of pre-planned targets, each selected months before the first Tomahawk left its tube. Behind the Tomahawks, our carrier air wing follows with 2 flavors of precision. The heavy, a 2,000-pound GBU-31 JDAM that punches through the concrete arch of a fast attack boat shelter the way a fist goes through drywall. And the surgical, a 250-pound GBU-39 small-diameter bomb that glides 40 nautical miles from release, threading between buildings to kill a single missile battery without touching the warehouse next door. The boats Iran spent decades building to swarm the Strait of Hormuz are burning under collapsed roofs. The submarine piers that could launch mine-laying operations into the strait are rubble. The coastal missile batteries that threaten tankers and coalition warships have ceased to exist. And through the corridors that our Navy seed burned open, something else flew, something no ship carries. B-2 Spirit bombers carrying 30,000-pound GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators targeted the underground facilities that no carrier aircraft can reach. We opened the door. What walked through it was designed for mountains. The 4 phases are complete. Now count what they cost and what they destroyed. Phase 0. Cost nearly nothing. Destroyed Iran's ability to coordinate. Phase 1. $35,000 per drone. Drained interceptors worth 100 times more. Phase 2, 1 AARGM-ER per radar battery. Destroyed systems worth 200 times the missile. Phase 3, arrived unopposed. Hundreds of targets eliminated in the first 24 hours. Stack those numbers. The total cost of phases 0 through 2, the cyber operations, the Lucas drones, the seed missiles, is a rounding error compared to what Iran spent building the wall. 40 years of investment, defeated by a sequence that cost less than a single Bavar 373 battery. But we would be lying if we told you this sequence was a perfect machine. It is not. It depends on intelligence. Wrong coordinates and the AARGM-ER hits dirt. It depends on the enemy. A distributed communications architecture would not collapse to 4% the way Iran's centralized network did. This sequence was engineered for one adversary. A different enemy requires a different chain. The principle remains, the application changes, and the result speaks for itself. Weeks later, Iran fires 40 missiles where it once fired 400. Not because it ran out of warheads, but because it ran out of radar to guide them, communications to coordinate them, and commanders with the authority to order them in a system that no longer has a system. The kill chain did not destroy Iran's weapons. It destroyed Iran's ability to use them. Iran is still fighting. The regime still launches ballistic missiles, but it launches them without radar coverage, without coordinated defense, without the network that once made those launches survivable. The wall is gone. The war is not. If this breakdown changed the way you see modern warfare, not as explosions, but as engineering, subscribe to Navy Decoded. Every video on this channel is built the same way. And if you want to see the next sequence we break down, hit the bell. You asked why Iran's air defense collapsed in hours when every simulation said weeks. Now you know. Not more bombs, not braver pilots, not better technology in isolation. A sequence, engineered so that each weapon created the conditions for the next. Blind the command, drain the interceptors, break the radar, strike the targets. Reverse any 2 steps, and the Bavar 373 batteries are still tracking. The Tomahawks are still burning over the Gulf. The corridors never open. The factories still produce. Sequence beats firepower. The side with more bombs does not win. The side that fires in the right order wins. Iran had the weapons. Iran had the wall. Iran had 40 years. Iran did not have the sequence. Every military on Earth watched this happen. Some are taking notes, some are redesigning their air defense, and some are asking a question that should keep defense planners awake at night. If this sequence broke Iran's wall, what wall is safe? The answer is none of them, unless you understand the sequence first. Dismissed.